And there's a quote from Stimmberg in the beginning, Stimmberg, this fictitious poet, author, and it's misanthropy is a kind of humanism. Humanism is also a kind of misanthropy. Okay. Not sure if I agree with that, but I'm mulling it over. Obviously, cheer and happiness abound. Better than food, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. At least that's what they tell me. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. These things are awesome. They are light, sleek, industrial, holds up to 12 cards plus room for cash on the back. Cash strap there. Also comes with a clip if you would like to change it out. This is an awesome new model they sent me recently. It's called Forged Ash. But of course, if you'd prefer something different, comes in 30 different colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. You do not put these in your back pocket. These are designed to go into your front pocket. They're extremely durable, and they are, they're pretty sexy looking. But if that didn't win you over yet, check out their 40,000 5-star reviews. 40,000. The durable material means that each Ridge wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. You could buy this one wallet and carry it for life. In fact, the Ridge team is so confident you'll enjoy it, they'll let you test drive it for 45 days. You can send it back for a full refund if you don't love it. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/betterthanfood and using the discount code betterthanfood. Link is below. Thank you so much. I'm selling these bookmarks, which is just my face with a little reminder there. I don't have a website or anything. You can just hit me up using the email below or DM me on Instagram. They are $4 each plus shipping, and I'm happy to sign them as well. So if you'd like to hit me up, I can send you a quote. Thank you so much. Anyways, just something really quick to finish out the month here before we head into the darkness of October. An Evocation of Matthias Stimmberg by Alain-Paul Mallard, translated by Sarah Pollock. Sent to me from Wakefield Press recently. Love those guys. Full transparency, I am sponsored by them in the sense that they send me free books from time to time. One of my favorite publishers. This is a beautiful, very thin, but very interesting little book with a great illustration of a hedgehog on the cover there from Breme's Life of Animals. There are illustrations from Breme's Life of Animals throughout. Anyways, let's get into it. This was unexpected. I've never come across a book quite like it. There's a lot of things it reminds me of, but the method it employs, which I'll get into, I've never seen a book attempt or utilize. And that would be like a method of expression of a character, a fictional character, through absence and silence. Only with very, very little snapshots, really anecdotes into their life, barely even there. I'd never heard of this or Alain-Paul Mallard or Matthias Stimmberg, who I learned is a fictional character, kind of in the vein of Jorge Luis Borges or maybe the heteronyms of Fernando Pessoa. This book has been called a miniature Borgesian portrait in misanthropy. And there's a quote from Stimmberg in the beginning, Stimmberg, this fictitious poet, author. And it's misanthropy is a kind of humanism. Humanism is also a kind of misanthropy. Okay. Not sure if I agree with that, but I'm mulling it over. Obviously, cheer and happiness abound. What is true, though, is that out of everything I've read this year, this little bomb of a book has more impact than anything else of its length that I've read, which is not even 50 pages. It's not even a novella. I really don't know what you would call it. I mean, portrait is probably the best word, like that quote. A portrait of the artist as a nihilist. A portrait of the artist as a misanthropist. A portrait of the artist as an absence, a portrait of the artist in silence. This is a short little acidic read, very acidic, best reserved for those, I think, who would appreciate the philosophy of Chiron, Louis Ferdinand Céline, Welbeck, and most famously, of course, which I think the book may even be a nod to, Thomas Bernhard. The Austrian author, the extremely pessimistic Austrian author, whose book Woodcutters actually received not too long ago. Plan on reviewing that soon. I really like him. I think he's great. But I mean, that's just like pitch black humor. Yeah, humor. But yeah, super dark, pessimistic, cynical, blah 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 blah. But super sharp. Great stuff. But I think this would definitely interest people who also enjoy reading the authors who toy with reality and what's real, what's factual and what's not, historical fiction, but Borges for sure, and Pessoa. Those who play with the idea of making the historically fictional seem factual, which is a lot of fun when it's done well. And sure enough, this left me really wondering, well, in the beginning, okay, was this actually a guy or was it not? He did kind of pull it off. And the book is 25 years old, as he says in the introduction, Mallard, the author. This was published, I think, originally in 1995 or so. It's a nocturnal kind of book. It's sort of a down note on the piano, like a short and sour expiration of breath, with some interesting, surreal, eerie, grotesque, and disturbing images. Fantasycla bitterness, for sure. I mean, if you like Huysmans, or if you like, fuck, dude. If you're into stuff like Alfred Jarry, maybe you would enjoy this as well. Octave Mirbeau. This character, Matthias Stimmberg, is a disdainful, pretentious poet with a snobby attitude composed of both simultaneously, self-loathing and superiority. It's a portrait of his life as told through about 10 moments or anecdotes. Some aren't even a page long. Really, the book barely exists. And so at first I was like, how can I even review it? It's barely there. But then I thought about it more, and I just find the whole construction of it very interesting. So yeah, it's written by this fellow named Alain-Paul Mallard, a filmmaker and poet from Mexico City who's lived in Paris since 1996. His biography in the book's flap is kind of humorous. One line is as follows: "Tempted by silence, he is the author of a short, highly concentrated body of work." Indeed, tempted by silence. Tempted by silence, as in he just didn't do anything. Which could be said, certainly for the character as well, Matthias Stimmberg, which begs a question, right? Is it a heteronym? Is it just kind of like a fake version of himself? Or a fictitious version of himself, not necessarily fake. Matthias Stimmberg is this fictional character, this Austrian poet who was born in the early 20th century. From the chapters in the book, we can, according to him, at least, we can ascertain that he had kind of a quiet, miserable existence, at least from his own perspective, if we are to trust the book, as this is his curated selection of images from his life. I've never come across a book wherein the actual goal of the work itself was to evoke the essence of a fictional character using as few lines as possible, to get to the point where you can't take away anything else, traversing huge swaths of time throughout a life in order to give you just the faintest suggestion. And there's something about it that is very impressive, very impressive. Even if the book in itself doesn't have a monumental impact on me, which it didn't, but there is something about it that is haunting. And that was what led me to review it. I finished it and thought, well, it's like almost like it's like tasting some wine. It's there for just a split second and then it's gone. But then those notes in the aftertaste hit you, and that gets you thinking. And that's what happened with this. The aftertaste of the book was strong, kind of foreboding. It's good. Within a life, within someone's biography anyways, there are moments that stand out above all others, of course. And perhaps when we think of the life of someone or our own lives, that's all it's reduced to in the end. And I mean, think about us on our deathbed, right? Going back through our life, assuming we're fortunate enough to get to 65 or 70, 75, 80, 100, who cares? When we're thinking about our life, what are the images that are going to stand out, right? What are the things that we will remember above all others? And how many of them will there really be in the end? My guess, personally, of course, I don't know. I haven't spoken to anybody that old about this, but my guess would be, probably something like this, like 10 defining moments or something like that. Maybe even fewer, I have no idea. A series of very striking images or anecdotes, the ones we remember. However beautiful, melancholic, violent, ecstatic, joyful, horrifying, dull. I always thought, when I was on my deathbed, if I get there, I'd be like, my last thought would be something really mundane or weird or random, the color of a shirt I had when I was 25 or some shit like that, I have no idea. though we don't really remember much of the mundane, do we? So it's funny then that, in a way, in a dark way, that many of the moments of Stimmberg's life are actually mundane and a bit humorously disappointing. There is a sense of dark humor running through the whole thing, but you're never comfortable with it. You're never comfortable with it. There's always a threat. There's always this cruelty or vitriol, maybe. The bitterness, I think, is probably the best word for it. Brevity is the soul of wit, as Shakespeare said. And there is something to the brevity of this book and the fact that it contains the essence of a character, even though it is so sparse. It's making use of that thing we do as humans, where with narratives, where we fill in the gaps. And that's an interesting kind of collaboration of a sort with the reader. I enjoy that. Stimmberg is a bit of a puzzle, right? He even, Mallard, the author, provides a timeline for the anecdotes in the end, for some of the stories at least. And by stories, I really just mean anecdotes. Pieces that contain a stark moment or image from his life. You know what I really enjoyed about this, though, was that it confronted me with the question, what do we really remember from a life? The lives of others or our own? What defines a life, really? What are the necessary components or images or what the minimum amount of stories to express what somebody was about, what their life was about? If anything, if there is one, you know. Really, when I think about mine, all I think about are roughly, probably 10 images, maybe less. If we were to truncate the life of another and illustrate it through the most important or transformative events, or perhaps the ones that just most illustrated their true character, perhaps you'd have something like this. What's been described as the distilled essence. It's not how much you can add, but how much you can take away. Not how much you can say, but rather in this case, how little. Not how loud you can speak, but rather how quiet. In this case, it was referring to a distilled essence of sterility and silence, as they put it, but just as well could have been a positive spin, I guess. So the book is divided into these 10 pieces out of chronological order, some of them not even a page long. It's accompanied by these gorgeous illustrations from Brem's Life of Animals. They correlate a little bit with the stories. The hedgehog on the cover, I think, is a reference, I imagine, to the porcupines in the chapter entitled Salt, which are associated in a surreal manner with what seems like the first love of Stimmberg's life, and the heartbreak, disillusionment, jealousy, and the disturbing dreams that follow. I don't know, at first I wasn't that into it, but then it has this kind of, it just has like this gothic European quality that I can't, I just can't get away from. There's something unflinching and cynical, but there's also something mysterious and dreamlike and unique. Like it's just the tip of the iceberg, and even if there wasn't anything necessarily beneath the surface, the fact that it can exude the aura that there may be is an impressive device and begs, further exploration. Like many great works of fiction playing this game, real events and characters are inserted in the fictitious anecdotes. The German publisher Peter Suhrkamp makes an appearance, as well as the poet Paul Celan. The chapter called Sisyphus recalls when Stimmberg, he spots this mouse in a pet store in a cage, in a wheel that's, the mouse is running constantly, like forever. And on his way home every day, he stops by this pet store and he looks in the window and sees this mouse running. So eventually he buys a mouse, and Paul Celan, the poet, comes over, and the mouse is yet to be named. So Celan dubs him Sisyphus, of course, from the myth of Sisyphus, about, Sisyphus forever pushing the boulder up the mountain. There's another rather darkly humorous story where Stimmberg is working in post-war Vienna, and he meets this woman who's traveling with a little wagon and pulling 3 goats, which are like skin and bones, and she's stripping off the posters on the walls for things and giving them to the goats. And so he's working at this publishing house, and to help feed her goats, Stimmberg gives her 2 leftover boxes of Mein Kampf, since it's garbage. He also gives her his own book as well, a testament to how much value he places on his own work. Of all my books, it was the first one, in my opinion, that met the best fate. Went to the goats. Another chapter, called In Poor Taste, deals with the death of Stimmberg's father, whose last words to him are, "There are those who expire with an odor of sanctity, and their bodies remain incorruptible for centuries. And then there are those of us who begin to rot long before we die." The title refers to the fact that Stimmberg toys with the idea of using that for his father's epitaph, on his gravestone. But then the poor taste of his siblings is preferred over his poor taste, as he puts it, as they get a gravestone with cement flowers, just like everybody else in the graveyard. Again, dark humor. Not for everybody, but I definitely thought some moments were interesting. The most disturbing moment for me was the following in the chapter entitled "The Shadow in the Puddles." And, I say disturbing, it's not just that it's disturbing, but it's also extremely compelling. Like, there's something almost Borgesian to it. It's a memory from his time in a place called Mannersdorf when he was young, and he spent a summer there. He said, "Of the gloomy town, I only remember the asylum. It was formerly a rest home whose genealogy is tied to that of the Habsburgs." And he talks about this memory in this asylum a little later. After slipping him a couple of shillings, one of the guards, I don't remember his name, only his big carnival nose, allowed people in to gawk at the lunatics. One fellow, practically a marionette, he was so skinny, spent the day kneeling, with his back to the sun, trying to pick his shadow up off the ground. He had forgotten how to speak. He kept silent, absorbed in his painful task, with his forehead almost resting on the floor. So, trying to pick up his own shadow. I don't know. It's nightmarish and bizarre and eerie. Something about that, losing one's mind and trying to pick up one's own shadow. That was the most haunting moment for me. I don't know. There's just something so dark and Borgesian about that action. And of course my mind flares up with tones of Chiron or maybe even Legati as well. It's this whole thing of society being like, you're talented. Do more for us, explain yourself, whatever. And he's like, yeah, no. Silence at the end of the day is a choice, right? Dropping out and rejecting society's request for an explanation, or their demands for an explanation, can in fact be an effective strategy for getting your point across. And it's very cool that a little book can remind us of that. As if the book is saying, engage with society to the extent that you're comfortable with, but always do it on your own terms. And don't give it what it wants if you don't want to. I like that. It's a nice little fuck you to expectation. And at the end of the day, with all of our lives being almost unbearably similar, can we really hope for more, But this is not advice. Don't listen to me. Don't take my word for it. I don't know anything. I have no advice. I won't read you the whole thing, but the ending is humorous because it talks about how this other poet, Hans Magnus Enzensberger, launched a moral campaign against Stimmberg, who of course remained silent and just kind of parried. It's the last chapter called Apostasy. Hans Magnus Enzensberger never forgave Matthias Stimmberg his reptilian indifference when faced with the moral dilemmas of our time, his reactionary apolitical stance, and his complicit silences in an article from 1977. He launched a virulent moral campaign against him with the slogan, "Why do we know nothing about Stimmberg's past?" In retrospect, said condemnation proved to be gratuitous, but at the time, it sparked a modest scandal that sowed discord within the German language literary world. It is almost superfluous to mention that Stimmberg, a man averse to polemics, who had a strained relationship with the media, did not abase himself by offering any kind of justification of his past. He dispatched the matter with a quote from Virgil and referred his timely inquisitor to his 4 lean volumes of poems. Yeah. And I'll leave the rest for you. I enjoyed that ending. I thought it was clever. So better than food? No, not for me, but odd, mysterious, compelling in its ability to illustrate the portrait of a character with so unusually little. It's really curious that I wasn't sure for a while whether or not the poet Matthias Stimmberg was real or not. Parts of it reminded me of Bohumil Hrabal's Too Loud a Solitude, which I reviewed for patrons, link below. Great book. Short little novella. It's a book about a man who destroys books for a living, destroys trash. So who should read it? Well, if you like, if you like fantastical stuff, Huysmans, if you like, Chiron, Thomas Ligotti, Welbeck, above all, Thomas Bernhard. If you like the short stories of Borges, if you like the Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa, any of that, I'd highly suggest you pick this up. And if you just like the illustrations and stuff, it's pretty cool to have around. It's a beautiful looking book. There's these flaps here, very nice. Gorgeous. Also says it's a masterpiece of the miniature in the tradition of Robert Walser, who it's criminal. I haven't reviewed on the channel yet. I don't know why. And Fleur Jégui, who I've never read, and a tribute to the legacy of Thomas Bernhard. Yes, that's part of the description on the back. Wonderful. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, Thank you very much for stopping by. I take the names of all the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show. I place their names in this mason jar. I pull out a name for every review, and whoever's name I pull out, they are sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. If you'd like to get in on that, help support the show, you can click on the link below and donate $5 or more per video on Patreon, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. $1 or more will get you access to the Patreon-only reviews, the Discord channel, and the Better Than Friday newsletter that I send out every Friday, just a list of 5 different things that I'm interested in at any given time. Could be books, articles, movies, clips, all sorts of stuff. Changes week to week. If you think we have similar taste, I think you'll get a lot of value out of that. If you donate $1 or more per video on Patreon, you shall get all of these reviews ad-free. Unfortunately, international shipping is not included. Sorry about that. Thank you very much to all the patrons, and best of luck. Okay, here we go. Bookish Pathos. Thank you very much, Bookish Pathos. You shall be receiving an Evocation of Matthias Stimmberg by Alain-Paul Mallard and some delicious coffee. Hope you enjoy both. Thank you so much. Well, I hope you enjoy this if you pick it up. The link is below. The show gets a kickback if you use the Amazon link, so thank you. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and always remember, bring a book wherever you go. All right, take care of yourselves. Have a great night. Thanks for stopping by. Talk to you soon. Ciao.